Hello, welcome to Doraemon the Strategy. So today I want to do a dissection on Norman Schwarzkopf famed news conference after his victory at the Gulf War. So this was an operation conducted against the Iraqi occupied Kuwait. So please watch this part.
Stood about that naval presence. One of the reasons why we did that is because it became very apparent to us early on that the Iraqis were quite concerned about an amphibious operation across the shores to liberate Kuwait, this being Kuwait City. They put a very, very heavy barrier of infantry along here, and they proceeded to build an extensive barrier that went all the way across the border, down and around and up the side of Kuwait. So basically, the problem we were faced with was this. When you looked at the troop numbers, they really outnumbered us about 3-2. And when you consider the number of combat service support people we had, that's logisticians and that sort of thing in our armed forces, as far as fighting troops, we were really outnumbered 2-1. In addition to that, they had 4,700 tanks versus our 3,500 when the buildup was complete, and they had a great deal more artillery than we do. I think any student of military strategy would tell you that in order to attack a position, you should have a ratio of approximately 3-1 in favor of the attacker. And in order to attack a position that is heavily dug in and barricaded, such as the one we had here, you should have a ratio of 5-1 in the way of troops in favor of the attacker. So you can see basically what our problem was at that time. We were outnumbered as a minimum 3-2 as far as troops were concerned. We were outnumbered as far as tanks were concerned, and we had to come up with some way to make up the difference. Next chart, please. I apologize for the busy nature of this chart, but I think it's very important for you to understand exactly what our strategy was. What you see here is a color coding where green is a go sign or a good sign as far as our forces are concerned. Yellow would be a caution sign, and red would be a stop sign. Green represents units that have been attrited below 50% strength. The yellow are units that are between 50 and 75% strength, and of course the red are units that are over 75% strength. What we did, of course, was start an extensive air campaign, and I briefed you in quite some detail on that in the past. One of the purposes I told you at that time of that extensive air campaign was to isolate the Kuwaiti theater of operation by taking out all the bridges and supply lines.
Okay, so I'll skip to another part. So what he basically what Norman was saying is like okay, basically from the diagram picture you can see that the Iraqi armed force, you look at the way they deploy their formation. So they have the weakest troops at the border near the coalition forces. Then the moderately like strong or weak force are in the center. Then the toughest force which are represented by the red rectangle. They are all at the very back. So they are hidden far away from the front lines. So some of them were in the city itself. At the back of the city. So this defense is basically like this is what I would call a defense in depth formation. So basically you have the weakest defense at the weaker defenses at the front, then the strongest defenses were at the very far back at the very far back behind the front line. So this is basically a defense in depth formation like for the Iraqi side. Okay, I'll skip to 809.
Basically, that you found that the commanders of these units, who were also in lines, had been attrited down to a point where all of these units were at 50% or below. The second level, by the 23rd of February, what you found is this situation. The front lines had been attrited down to a point where all of these units were at 50% or below. The second level, basically, that we had to face, and these were the real tough fighters that we were worried about right here, were attrited to some place between 50 and 75%, although we still had the Republican Guard located here, and part of the Republican Guard in this area that were very strong, and the Republican Guard up in this area strong. And we continued to hit the bridges all across this area to make absolutely sure that no more reinforcements came into the battle. This was a situation on the 23rd of February. Next, please. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I shouldn't forget these fellows. That SF stands for Special Forces. We put Special Forces deep into the enemy territory. They went out on strategic reconnaissance for us, and they let us know what was going on out there, and they were the eyes that were out there, and very important that I not forget those folks. Next, please. This then was the morning of the 24th. Our plan initially had been to start over here in this area and do exactly what the Iraqis thought we were going to do. And that's take them on head on into their most heavily defended area. Also at the same time we launched amphibious feints and naval gunfire in this area so that they continued to think that we were going to be attacking along this coast and therefore fix their forces in this position. Our hope was that by fixing the forces in this position and with this attack through here in this position, we would basically keep the forces here and they wouldn't know what was going on out in this area. And I believe we succeeded in that very well. At 4 o'clock in the morning, the Marines, the 1st Marine Division and the 2nd Marine Division launched attacks through the barrier system. They were accompanied by the the Tiger Brigade, U.S. Army Tiger Brigade of the 2nd Armored Division. At the same time over here, 2 Saudi task forces also launched a penetration through this barrier. But while they were doing that, at 4 o'clock in the morning over here, the 6th French Armored Division, accompanied by a brigade of the 82nd Airborne, also launched an overland attack to their objective up in this area, Al Salman Airfield. And we were held up a little bit by the weather, but by 8 o'clock in the morning, the 101st Airborne Air Assault launched an air assault deep in the enemy territory to establish a forward operating base in this location right here. Let me talk about each one of those moves. First of all, the Saudis over here on the East Coast did a terrific job. They went up against a very, very tough barrier system. They breached the barrier very, very effectively. They moved out aggressively and continued their attack up the coast. I can't say enough about the 2 Marine divisions. If I use words like brilliant, it would really be an under-description of the absolutely superb job that they did in breaching the so-called impenetrable barrier. It was a classic, absolutely classic military breaching of a very, very tough minefield, barbed wire, fire trenches type barrier. They went through the first barrier like it was water. They went across into the 2nd barrier line, even though they were under artillery fire at the time. They continued to open up that breach, and then they brought both divisions streaming through that breach. Absolutely superb operation, a textbook, and I think it'll be studied for many, many years to come as the way to do it. I would also like to say that the French did an absolutely superb job of moving out rapidly to take their objective out here, and they were very, very successful, as was the 101st. And again, we still had the Special Forces located in this area. What we found was as soon as we breached these obstacles here and started bringing pressure, we started getting a large number of surrenders. And I think I talked to some of you all about that this evening when I briefed you on the evening of the 24th. We found we got a large number of surrenders. We also found that these forces right here were getting a large number of surrenders and were meeting with a great deal of success. We were worried about the weather. The weather, it turned out, was going to get pretty bad the next day, and we were worried about launching this air assault. And we also started to have a huge number of atrocities of really the most unspeakable type committed in downtown Kuwait City, to include reports that the desalinization plant had been destroyed. And when we heard that, we were quite concerned about what might be going on. Based upon that and the situation as it was developing, we made a decision that rather than wait the following morning to launch the remainder of these forces, that we would go ahead and launch those forces that afternoon. Next. So this was a situation you saw the afternoon of the 21st. The Marines continued to make great progress going through the breach in this area and were moving rapidly north. The Saudi task force on the East Coast was also moving rapidly to the north and making very, very good progress. We launched another Egyptian Arab force in this location and another Saudi force in this location, again to penetrate the barrier, but once again to make the enemy continue to think that we're doing exactly what he wanted us to do, and that's make a headlong assault into a very, very tough barrier system, a very, very tough mission for these folks here. But at the same time, what we did is continued to attack with the French We launched an attack on the part of the entire 7th Corps where the 1st Infantry Division went through, breached an obstacle and minefield barrier here, established quite a large breach through which we passed the 1st British Armored Division. At the same time, we launched the 1st Armored Division, the 3rd Armored Division, and because of our deception plan and the way it worked, we didn't even have to worry about a barrier. We just went right around the enemy and were behind him in no time at all. And the 2nd Armored Cavalry Division. And I ought to talk, and the 24th Mech Division also launched out here in the far west, and I ought to talk about the 101st because this is an important point. Once the 101st had their forward operating base established here, they then went ahead and launched into the Tigris and Euphrates Valley. There's a lot of people who are still saying that the object of the United States of America was to capture Iraq and cause a downfall of the entire country of Iraq. Ladies and gentlemen, when we were here, we were 150 miles away from Baghdad, and there was nobody between us and Baghdad. If it had been our intention to take Iraq, if it had been our intention to destroy the country, if it had been our intention to overrun the country, we could have done it unopposed for all intents and purposes from this position at that time. But that was not our intention. We had never said it was our intention. Our intention was purely to eject the Iraqis out of Kuwait and destroy the military power that had come in here. So this was the situation at the end of February the 24th in the afternoon. Next, please. The next 2 days went exactly like we thought they would go. The Saudis continued to make great progress up on the eastern flank, keeping the pressure off the Marines on the flank here. The Special Forces went out and started operating small boat operations out in this area to help clear mines, but also to threaten the flanks here and to continue to make them think that we were in fact going to conduct amphibious operations. The Saudi forces that came in and took and Arab forces that came in and took these 2 initial objectives turned to come in on the flank heading towards Kuwait City, located right in this area here. The British UK passed through and continued to attack up this flank, and of course the 7th Corps came in and attacked in this direction as shown here. The 24th Infantry Division made an unbelievable move all the way across into the Tigris and Euphrates Valley and proceeded in blocking this avenue of egress out, which was the only avenue of egress left because we continued to make sure that the bridges stayed down. So there was no way out once the 24th was in this area, and the 101st continued to operate in here. The French, having succeeded in achieving all of their objectives, then set up a flanking position, a flank guard position here to make sure that no forces could come in and get us from the flank. By this time, we had destroyed or rendered completely ineffective over 21 Iraqi divisions. Next, please. And of course, that then brings us to today. Where we are today is we now have a solid wall across the north of the 18th Airborne Corps, consisting of the units shown right here, attacking straight to the east. We have a solid wall here again of the 7th Corps, also attacking straight to the east. The forces that they are fighting right now are the forces of the Republican Guard. Again, today we had a very significant day when the Arab forces coming from both the west and the east closed in and moved into Kuwait City, where they are now in the process of clearing Kuwait City entirely and assuring that it's absolutely secure. The 1st Marine Division continues to hold Kuwaiti International Airport. The 2nd Marine Division continues to be in a position where it blocks any egress out of the city of Kuwait so no one can leave. To date, we have destroyed over 29, destroyed or rendered inoperable. I don't like to say destroyed because that gives you the visions of absolutely killing everyone, and that's not what we're doing. But we have rendered completely ineffective over 29 Iraqi divisions, and the gates are closed. There is no way out of here. There is no way out of here, and the enemy is fighting us in this location right here. We continue, of course, to have overwhelming air power. The air has done a terrific job from start to finish in supporting the ground forces, and we also have had great support from the Navy, both in the form of naval gunfire and in the support of carrier air. That's the situation at the present time. Next, please.
Okay, so what I can do to improve the Iraqi prospect of defending the Kuwait city is to not basically I think the situation is for the the situation for the Iraqi forces, they will be hopeless anyway lah, because given the technological and numerical superiority of the coalition force, I mean, the situation will be hopeless anyway. So I mean, if we go back to this chart, where is the where's the chart? Okay, this is the defensive layout of the Iraqi forces. So I mean, this layout is the best. This defensive formation was the best they could come up with. I mean, given the situation they are in, I mean, it is hopeless anyway for them. But this is probably the best layout they have. So if I were the Iraqi force commander in charge of the formation here, I won't change anything except maybe one small change, maybe one minor change I will do, which is basically the red ones, I will put them at the front line, at the border, while the yellow one will remain as they are. Then the green one I will quickly shift them, retreat all the way to the back. Yeah, so basically that's one changes I'll make. Like basically the red one will be at the front line, while the green one will be at the back. So because what they are doing what they are doing currently is a defense in depth. So defense in depth is like let me check Wikipedia. Defense in depth. Where's defense? So it's a form of military strategy that seeks to delay rather than prevent the advance of an attacker. So what they are trying to do is they are trying to seek to delay rather than prevent the advance. So it's not to prevent but to delay. So rather than defeating an attacker with a single strong defensive line, defense in depth rely on the tendency of an attack to lose momentum over time. So will you likely defender effort in so defense in depth is always a very good defense strategy. I always like to use defense in depth, but I mean it's definitely one of my favorite defensive strategy. But this defensive strategy will not work against a powerful opponent. You will not work against a powerful opponent with such mighty offensive force. Because what I would do is instead of delaying the advance of the attacker, I would rather try to prevent. So instead of delaying, I will do the opposite. I will delay the advance. So I will have the stronger force, the red color one, which probably consists of the Republican Guard as well. I will have them like form the first barrier line instead. So I will just use my stronger troops to try to prevent put all my strongest troops at the front line. All the strongest troops at the front line. Basically, they will be the first to be in contact with the US soldiers that were trying to break through the first defensive line. So I'll put them at the first front line, first defensive line. Then all the weakest troops, I will put them at the far back, in the safety of the city. Because if you put all the weakest troops at the front, and once the enemy was in contact with them, they get demoralized easily, and this result in mass surrender of the Iraqi troops. Because the green troops are more likely, they are basically the cowards, you don't put them at the front line. If you put the cowards at the front line, they are more likely to just rout out and surrender. So instead, the cowardly people, the cowards, you just put them at the far back, far away from the front line. They also have the protection of the city itself, because they can hide in the buildings, like they have the protection of the buildings. So if you based on Sumping Out of War, he underscore Sumping no less than Sun Tzu underscore the importance of gaining strategic advantage in making one's troop courageous. So how can it be that soldiers who cut their own troops rather than retreating, advancing on the enemy, were still not there to engage him because they are strategically disadvantaged and occupy favorable ground. So soldiers basically, like I would say, like, okay, then this, you read this order is born from order, cowardice from courage, the line between. So what he says is that our courage is not fixed and not given. It's the product of manipulating the circumstances and giving one side the strategic advantage. So the weakest troops, which are the greens one, you, instead of putting them at the front line where they are basically exposed to they are directly exposed to enemy fire, why not you put them at the far back, in the safety of the of the buildings and everything. The buildings basically put them on like strategically favorable terrain, like in the depths of the city, rather than directly in contact with, like, rather than directly in contact with the enemy at the front line. So then your strongest troops you put there at the front line, so let them do the job of, like, trying to stop the enemy advance. So I think it's maybe easier for me to illustrate the diagram. So this is like okay, if you put the weakest troop, okay, so if you put the weakest troop at the front line, then the strongest troops you put at the back, where they have the protection of a. So the strongest troops you put at the back, where they have the protection of shelters and stuff, like the strongest troops, they have the protection of all the buildings. So all these are the buildings. So because what the Iraqi were doing is, like, they were putting on the strongest troops, like they just keep them away from the front line, just while the enemy forces were engaging the green troops. So this is the coalition forces. So you let the green troops get absolutely crushed. You let the green troops get absolutely crushed while I am doing nothing. So you let them hide inside hide in the safety of all the buildings, the tall buildings, while basically you put them at the very back, away from the front line, while the green one are getting absolutely crushed. Then this is going to cause the morale to collapse. So you're just going to result in a situation where because the greens ones are all the weak troops, all the cowards, or those that are easily demoralized, or they have no fighting spirit. So you're also in a situation where, like, the entire front line just collapse. So the green one will just run away. Sorry, the green one will just run away. Okay, the green one will just, like, run away. And the blue one will continue to advance and crush the yellow one now. Or the red one is still at the back, doing nothing. So the green one will just run away. So the entire front line buckle. You just let the entire front line buckle. Then the blue one just continue steamroll. So, okay, front line. Let me show how the front line is like that. So initially the front line is like that. So now the front line become like like that, like maybe like that. Yeah, the entire front line just like getting folded lah. So this, because against the superior troops using defense in depth, no point delaying the enemy. The enemy is just going to smash through the front line. So because you see, if you look at the end,
We put in the morning all the way across it. Over 20 set up a flanking position, a flank guard first continuous.
So by this time, okay, by this time a lot of division was getting crushed or destroyed or surrendered. They were mass surrendering and this. But the real one is still at the back, like doing nothing lah, like they're just camping at the far back. So it's like, imagine you play a team, if you're playing an online multiplayer match, the noobs are getting crushed, and then the strongest one are just they are not at the front line, they're just sitting at the very back of the front line, not doing anything, not engaging the enemy forces. So yeah, I mean that is not a good team play. You're just going to cause the morale to collapse, because the entire army is like the moment like the soldiers at the back of the moment the soldiers at the back were hearing like that the soldiers at the front line were running away, were surrendering, then they will definitely lose morale. So I mean, yeah, you're not doing anything to salvage the situation. So instead, why not have like, maybe this might be better. Maybe maybe if you don't have the time, you can steer. Okay, so maybe like, because maybe what you can do is, maybe you can try to like send some of your strongest unit to reinforce the front line. Then your green one quickly retreat. The weakest one we quickly retreat to the safety of the building. And the red one all come down to reinforce the front line. So what you do is you retreat all your green one, all your green one to the back. So you send all your green one, you try to retreat all your green one. Let them retreat to the safety of all the buildings at the back at the far back let them retreat to the safety of the buildings. So the green one, let them retreat to the safety of the building. So with so according to Sun Ping, according to Master Sun Ping, the green one, you should not let the green one, which are the cowards, you should not let them occupy strategically disadvantaged and unfavorable ground. So by putting them at the more favorable ground, so like the buildings is, I'll call it the strategically favorable ground. So you let the green ones occupy the strategically favorable ground, because they are the cowards. So when they have the protection of all the buildings, like all the shelters and stuff, then they will be more brave, and they can fight more effectively when enemy comes. But your strongest one, you put them the strongest one at the front line. The strongest force at the front line. So this will no longer be a defense in-depth formation, because you are actually trying to prevent the advance of the enemy rather than delay it. So when the green one occupy a favorable ground, and over time they will slowly recover. So over time, the green one will slowly recover and become yellow. Okay, then all your green one, quickly send them, and keep sending more. These are the buildings. So over time the green one will recover and become yellow yellow status because they are occupying strategically favorable ground. So they gain back their morale. They have their morale recovered. They have their manpower, the equipment and stuff, everything. So they feel more confident because they have the protection of the shelter and stuff. Okay, never mind. Just dotted. Then okay, so ideally, you have all the red one at the front, engaging the coalition force. So if the Iraqis were lucky, there's a chance that the strongest force, including the Republican Guards, they might be able to stop the coalition forces at the front line, or even counter attack and push them back into the desert. So this might be a chance they might be able to stop the coalition force from attacking so there might be a chance they might be able to stop the coalition force from attacking directly into the city. But of course they have to deal with the large coalition force at the flank. So even if the forces manage to push back, they have to deal with the coalition forces that are coming by this flank. So I mean the situation might be very hopeless. But I think it's about how you can try to win the war here at Kuwait before you deal with the forces here. So if they have the chance to push the coalition forces here back into the desert, then the enemy, the coalition might be tempted to send forces from here to reinforce this area but this is just a scenario I mean it's just a scenario I don't know how this will play out but my point is like I think if you can try to win the city fight first here don't let the coalition forces push into this area first if you can stop them here, then maybe if you are able to stop the coalition forces here, then maybe you have the chance to send your forces from here to meet the enemy advance here. So maybe if the stronger force, including the Republican Guard, stop the US force in this area, then maybe they can send some Republican Guard or some healthy division to defend against the coalition's force defending here but I don't know, it's just something I think it's just a thought experiment I had It's not something I was having in my mind like how I don't know, it's just my own imagination but of course this is just a thought experiment I mean of course we know that the chance of Iraqi winning this will be super slim but I mean it's just fun for me I just like to think of the strategies So in summary I would say that if I were the Iraqi commander defending the city of Kuwait, instead of a defense in that formation where I have the weakest force at the front and the strongest force at the far back, I will actually have the strongest force at the front, the weakest force at the back. Because the weakest force should occupy a more strategically favorable ground so that they won't be cowards. They will fight more effectively. So based on swooping out of war. So that's what I'm trying to say by making this dissection.